If you pay close attention to your own reactions, you might notice a very specific, almost automatic reflex. Something goes wrong in your life, a plan falls through, a relationship ends, a financial stressor hits out of nowhere, or you simply wake up feeling entirely overwhelmed by the weight of your own existence. And the very first thought you have isn't, I need help. Your first thought is, how do I manage this so that no one else is inconvenienced? When someone asks how you are doing, you smile. You adjust your posture. You say, I'm fine, just a little tired, or I'm good, just a lot going on right now. You say it so smoothly, so convincingly, that not only do they believe you, but for a split second, you almost believe yourself. People who are always fine often don't realize that this isn't just a polite social habit. It isn't just being a low-maintenance person or having a resilient personality. If you are someone who compulsively hides your pain, who instinctively shrinks your own struggles to make room for everyone else's, you aren't just being strong. You are running a deeply ingrained psychological defense mechanism, and it says far more about your past than it does about your present. Let's look at the micro behaviors of being the strong one. It doesn't usually look like a dramatic stoic silence. It looks incredibly normal. It looks like going through a major life crisis, but still showing up to coffee to listen to your friend vent about a minor disagreement they had at work, nodding and offering supportive advice while your own world is quietly burning down. It looks like getting sick and waiting until you're entirely incapacitated before you even think about asking someone to bring you medicine. It looks like meticulously scheduling your emotional breakdowns, waiting until you are in the car or in the shower or alone in your room late at night so that your sadness doesn't accidentally spill over onto someone else's carpet. To the outside world, you are the rock. You are capable, level-headed, and reliable. People admire you for it. They praise your independence. They tell you how much they appreciate that you never require too much from them. But beneath that calm, capable facade is a constant, quiet hum of anxiety. The hyper-independence you project isn't born out of a natural desire to do everything alone. It is born out of a fundamental lack of safety. Somewhere along the line, you learn that your needs are a burden. Psychologically, this is a form of conditioning. As children, our primary survival strategy is attachment. We need our caregivers to stay close, to provide for us, and to love us. If a child grows up in an environment where the adults around them are volatile, emotionally fragile, entirely overwhelmed, or simply absent, the child makes a very quick, very unconscious calculation. The child realizes, if I have needs, I cause stress. If I cause stress, I might be rejected or abandoned. Therefore, to stay safe, I must not have any needs. You learned to read the temperature of the room before you even stepped fully inside it. You became an expert at anticipating what other people needed to feel comfortable, and you contorted yourself to provide it. If they needed you to be quiet, you were invisible. If they needed you to be the adult, you grew up in an afternoon. You became the glass child, the peacemaker, the miniature therapist. You learned that love and safety were conditional, and the condition was that you could never, ever be a problem. That doesn't just go away when you grow up. It crystallizes into an identity. And here's where the psychology of this gets genuinely fascinating and a little uncomfortable. We tend to think of the I'm fine reflex as a selfless act. We tell ourselves that we are just being considerate. We don't want to bring down the mood. We don't want to stress our partners out. We don't want to dump our trauma on our friends. We frame our silence as an act of generosity. But the real reason isn't what most people think. It's not just about being selfless. It is about control. When you refuse to let anyone see you struggle, you are controlling the narrative. Vulnerability requires surrender. It requires handing a piece of your emotional state over to someone else and trusting them not to drop it. For someone who is chronically fine, that level of surrender is terrifying. If you never ask for help, you can never be denied help. If you never lean on anyone, they can never step out of the way and let you fall. By keeping all of your pain internalized, you are protecting yourself from the sting of disappointment. You are preemptively rejecting the world before the world has a chance to reject you for being too much. It is a trauma response disguised as extreme capability. You are managing everyone else's emotional state by entirely erasing your own. This is why, even when you are surrounded by people who genuinely love you, you often feel a profound, aching sense of loneliness. It is a very specific type of isolation. You aren't physically alone. You have friends, a partner, a family, a community, but they don't know you. Not really. They know the curated, indestructible version of you. They know the version of you that listens, that solves problems, that pays the bills, that remembers the birthdays, and that smooths over the conflicts. They love the utility of you. They love how easy you make their lives. But they don't know the exhausted version of you. They don't know the version of you that is terrified of failing. They don't know the version of you that sometimes wants to completely fall apart and be carried for just a little while. And because you never let them see that part of you, you secretly carry the fear that if they ever did see it, they would leave. You become trapped in a cage of your own design. You resent people for not noticing that you are drowning, but you are smiling underwater, refusing to kick, and actively slapping away the life preservers. You find yourself frustrated that relationships feel one-sided. You wonder why you are always the one pouring into others while your cup remains bone dry. But the psychological reality is that you have rigorously trained the people in your life to treat you this way. You have taught them that you do not require care. You have advertised yourself as a self-sustaining machine. When someone does try to break through that barrier, when they look at you and say, "No, really, how are you?" you probably feel a sudden spike of panic. Your chest tightens. Your throat closes up. It feels dangerous to let the truth out. Because if you admit that you are not fine, the entire carefully constructed architecture of your identity feels like it might collapse. If you are not the strong one, who are you? What is your value to the people around you if you aren't the one holding everything together? This is the hidden cost of compulsive self-reliance. It forces you to divorce yourself from your own humanity. Human beings are not designed to process the weight of life in a vacuum. We are a tribal, deeply interdependent species. Our nervous systems are literally wired to regulate themselves through the presence of other safe nervous systems. When you go through a traumatic event, a loss, or even just a period of intense stress, and you refuse to share it, that emotional energy doesn't just evaporate because you ignored it. It gets trapped in the body. It turns into chronic tension in your shoulders. It turns into unexplained fatigue. It turns into digestive issues, migraines, and a baseline level of irritability that you can't seem to shake. You spend so much energy holding the emotional dam in place that you have nothing left for actual joy. You might find that your emotional range is flattened out. You don't get deeply devastated anymore, but you also don't feel profound happiness. Everything is just a functional gray middle ground. You are surviving, efficiently and quietly, but you are not fully alive. There is a subtle, quiet grief in realizing this about yourself. When you finally look back at your life and realize how many years you spent swallowing your own voice just to make sure the room stayed quiet. When you realize how many times you abandoned yourself because you were terrified that asking for comfort would make someone else uncomfortable. It is a heavy thing to recognize, but that recognition is profoundly important. Understanding this pattern is the only way it begins to lose its power over you. You start to notice it happening in real time. You notice the moment a friend asks you for a favor when you are already exhausted, and you feel that familiar urge to just say, "Yes, no problem," bubble up in your throat. You notice the moment your partner asks why you are quiet, and the words, "I'm just tired," are already on your tongue before you've even processed why you are actually upset. Once you see the machinery behind the behavior, you can't unsee it. You realize that your chronic fineness is not a personality trait. It was an armor you put on when you were too small to protect yourself any other way. It was a brilliant, highly effective survival strategy that kept you safe when you were navigating a world that didn't know how to hold your needs. But you aren't in that world anymore. The armor that kept you safe is now the exact thing keeping you isolated. The walls you built to keep out the pain are now keeping out the connection. There is no quick fix for this. And undoing it is not about forcing yourself to suddenly bare your soul to everyone you meet. It is not about becoming a fundamentally different person. It is simply about shifting the internal narrative. It is about recognizing that your value to the people around you is not completely tied to your utility. It is about understanding that true intimacy, the kind of deep, grounding connection that makes life actually bearable, is impossible without friction. It is impossible without taking up space. People who genuinely love you do not want you to be a marble statue. They do not want you to be a perfectly frictionless, low-maintenance ghost in their lives. They want you, with all of the messy, inconvenient, heavy humanity that comes with it. And that awareness alone changes how you move through the world. The next time the weight of everything feels like too much, and that old familiar reflex tells you to hide, to shrink, to just say you are fine and deal with it in the dark, you might pause. You might realize it was never random. It was a pattern. And for the first time, you might realize that you don't actually have to carry the whole world by yourself just to justify your right to stand on it. If this explains something for you, there's more to uncover. Understanding yourself is the beginning of everything.